The Hoard by J.R.R. Tolkien. When the moon was new and the sun young, of silver and gold the gods sung. In the green grass they silver spilled, and the white waters they with gold filled. Ere the pit was dug or hell yawned, ere dwarf was bred or dragon spawned, there were elves of old, and strong spells under green hills in hollow dells. They sang as they wrought many fair things, and the bright crowns of the elf kings, but their doom fell and their song waned, by iron hewn and by steel chained. Greed that sang not, nor with mouth smiled, in dark holes their wealth piled. Graven silver and carven gold, over elven home the shadow rolled. There was an old dwarf in a dark cave, to silver and gold his fingers clave, with hammer and tongs and anvil stone he worked his hands to the hard bone, and coins he made, and strings of rings, and thought to buy the power of kings. But his eyes grew dim, and his ears dull, and the skin yellow on his old skull. Through his bony claw with a pale sheen, the stony jewels slipped unseen. No feet he heard, though the earth quaked, when the young dragon his thirst slaked, and the stream smoked at his dark door. The flames hissed on the dank floor, and he died alone in the red fire. His bones were ashes in the hot mire. There was an old dragon under grey stone. His red eyes blinked as he lay alone. His joy was dead, and his youth spent. He was knobbed and wrinkled, and his limbs bent. In the long years to his gold chained. In his heart's furnace the fire waned. To his belly's slime gems stuck thick. Silver and gold he would snuff and lick. He knew the place of the least ring beneath the shadow of his black wing. Of thieves he thought on his hard bed, and dreamed that on their flesh he fed. Their bones crushed and their blood drank. His ears drooped and his breath sank. Mail rings rang, he heard them not. A voice echoed in his deep grot. A young warrior with a bright sword called him forth to defend his hoard. His teeth were knives, and of horn his hide, but iron tore him, and his flame died. There was an old king on a high throne. His white beard lay on knees of bone. His mouth savoured neither meat nor drink, nor his ears song. He could only think of his huge chest with carven lid, where pale gems and gold lay hid in a secret treasury in the dark ground. Its strong doors were iron bound. The swords of his thanes were dull with rust, his glory fallen, his rule unjust, his halls hollow and his bowers cold. But king he was of elvish gold. He heard not the horns in the mountain pass, he smelt not the blood on the trodden grass, but his halls were burned, his kingdom lost, in a cold pit his bones were tossed. There is an old hoard in a dark rock, forgotten behind doors none can unlock. That grim gate no man can pass. On the mound grows the green grass. There sheep feed and the larks soar, and the wind blows from the seashore. The old hoard the night shall keep, while earth waits and the elves sleep. This is a stirring ballad from Tolkien's poetry collection of The Adventures of Tom Bombadil, and it tells of the passing of many ages of history from the perspective of a hoard of treasure. The recurrent theme is one of youthful conquest giving way to decadence, decay, and decrepitude. The elves are conquered by an unnamed darkness. The dwarf craftsman dies alone and blind when a dragon comes to steal his gold. The dragon is then slain in his old age by a brave warrior, and many years later his dynasty and people are annihilated by conquest. The hoard lies forgotten. Poetically speaking, I feel that this poem is somewhat inferior to the others of Tolkien's in this collection, in that its rhythm can feel rather stilted and forced. The second couplet of the poem should convey what I mean. In the green grass they silver spilled, and the white waters they with gold filled. Rather awkward to read smoothly, I think. A good poem should roll off the tongue with natural and unforced rhythm, as it does in much of the rest of the poem. However, the imagery and story of the hoard are very well conveyed, despite this. One of the most telling signs of decadence in this poem is the decay of the senses. When the elves fall in the first verse, there is no singing. It is as if they are rendered dumb. Dwarf, dragon, and king alike are near deaf when the end comes for them. He heard not the horns in the mountain pass. He smelt not the blood on the trodden grass. But his halls were burned, his kingdom lost. In a cold pit his bones were tossed. The final verse hints at archaeological treasure, appealing to the persistent love of treasure hunting and archaeological excavations of which British people are often so fond. Is it really so hard to imagine that hoards of gold and silver might be buried beneath one's back garden? Elven gold, on the other hand, is a different matter. The addition of elves, dwarves and dragons is of course a fantastical touch, but one deeply rooted in European mythology that adds a unique magic and mysticism to the land.